Everywhere you look right now, people are talking about AI. New tools, billion-dollar companies, even the president making $100 billion investments into projects. And it can feel overwhelming. It can feel like you've been dropped into the middle of a movie without seeing the beginning. What exactly is AI? How does it actually work? And most importantly, how does it affect me in my day-to-day life? So in this video, we're going to break down what exactly is an LLM, why it matters, and how it changes the way you work. So let's start at the core question. What is a large language model? At the simplest level, an LLM is a type of artificial intelligence that's trained to work with the human language. Here's the key idea. An LLM doesn't know facts in the way humans do. It doesn't understand language the way you or I do and the way we would converse. What it does do actually is predict what comes next in a sequence of words. So if you've ever used autocomplete to finish a sentence, you already have kind of a fundamental idea of how this works in your head. An LLM is like that, but a scaled up version that can generate entire essays, poems, conversations, or functioning tools. The large in LLM refers to the size of the model, so the amount of parameters it's been trained on. But a language model like GPT-4, the one that everyone uses most commonly, is trained on hundreds of billions of parameters. And that size of how much it captures is what allows it to develop at the scale it does, and the styles and tones of it picking up on from nuances from the human language. So to sum this up in plain English, an LLM is a program that predicts words based on patterns learned from massive amounts of text. It's called large because of the enormous scale of both its training data and complexity of its internal structure. And while it feels like it knows things, it's really generating answers on the fly by predicting the most likely next word over and over until it produces something that looks like a coherent thought. The next step would be, how does it work? When you feed words into a model, they can get broken down into tokens, chunks of text. Sometimes whole words, sometimes just pieces of words. These tokens get converted into numbers, then pass through all these layers of the network. And as they pass through, the model is doing math, billions of tiny calculations to figure out which word should come next. At the end, it produces a probability list of the possible next words. This loop repeats over and over until it generates a full response, the one that you see coming out of this magical system. Now, the reason modern LLMs are so good is because of the scale and the volume they've been trained on. Older models had just millions of parameters and not enough to capture full in-depth relationships. But modern LLMs like GPT-4 or Claude Opus have hundreds of billions of parameters, meaning billions of adjustable weights that help the model detect subtle relationships between words, ideas, context. Think about this for a second. Until now, you had to learn machine language in order to develop it further or get anything out of it. You had to learn commands or code or software, but with LLM, now the machine adapts to your language. And this shift is massive because it means accessibility skyrockets. Anyone, regardless of technical skill, can now program a machine just by talking to it. Productivity multiplies because now something that took countless hours of inputs is only requiring minimal for the machine to get a complex idea put together. And creativity expands. Businesses are discovering entirely new workflows because the barrier to execution is lower than ever. But it goes deeper. We're even seeing tools that can help doctors analyze patients by breaking down the image. People are calling LLMs general purpose technology of our time. Like electricity or the internet, they're not just a product, they're a platform, kind of like a universal interface to human culture. They can draw on history, science, art, daily conversations in ways no single expert could. Now, this doesn't mean they're perfect. They hallucinate, they make mistakes, they can be biased, but even with those flaws, the sheer versatility of what can be made inside an LLM makes them game-changing. To put it bluntly, before LLMs, computers were tools. With LLMs, computers are starting to feel like collaborators. So let's break down the limitations of these insane models. Here's the truth. LLMs are impressive, but they're not magic. They have real constraints that anyone using it needs to understand. Number one, they don't actually understand. LLMs don't think or reason the way humans do. They don't have beliefs, knowledge, or awareness of the world. What they do is predict what words are most likely to come next based on patterns in data. And so without us, they can't really scale beyond what data we give it. That's why sometimes you'll see them produce an answer that sounds right, but is completely wrong. If the training data has a cultural bias, the model might reflect that bias. If misinformation exists online, the model might reproduce it. So there is a big reason why we can't trust an LLM blindly. You always need to verify what it's telling you. Number three, lack of real-time knowledge. Most LLMs don't exactly know what's happening in real time, happening right now. Their knowledge cuts off at the point they're training data. And number four, dependence on training data. An LLM can only generate answers based on what it's seen in a data set. So if a topic is underrepresented, the model might struggle or produce generic answers that mean its intelligence is only as good as the data it's trained on. And most importantly, why these limitations matter. It's easy to fall into the trap of treating LLMs like digital humans and giving all your power away to it and getting annoyed by it. But understanding these limits helps us stay grounded and use them to their ability and nothing beyond that. So here are my takeaways from their limitations. LLMs are powerful assistants, not flawless oracles. They're amazing at generating ideas, summaries, explanations, and drafts. LLMs are turning into everyday assistants, therefore replacing very fundamentals of the internet that people use. Got a topic you don't understand? Instead of Googling it, like we would have probably 5 years ago, and never quite finding that right answer, AI is going to explain it in plain English to the exact demographic that you are, so you can piece it in your head the best way possible. Anything that can be done on a computer is now fully at risk of being automated, and it's good to be self-aware opposed to being neglectful with it. Lawyers, accountants, writers, customer support, even marketing teams. LLMs can assist or replace many traditional workflows. Small business owners benefit from these efficiencies, but society will face a huge dynamic shift in the workforce that require adaptation and reskilling. So what comes with this section is super iconic is LLMs are incredibly powerful, but they come with responsibility. Spider-Man reference. So we need to leverage AI safely and effectively whilst growing and using it. And that brings us to the end of this deep dive into LLMs, our large language models, which is the end of the episode 2 of the roadmap. So if you enjoyed, I'll see you in the next episode.